Let me talk to you today about a woman who lives alone without a boyfriend. Now listen closely, because society has been real loud about this one. Somewhere along the line, people started believing that if a woman is not attached to a man, something must be missing in her life. But I'm here to tell you today that idea is completely wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this loud and clear today. Independence is not loneliness. It is self-respect in action. Somewhere along the way, society confused a woman standing alone with a woman being alone, and those two things are not the same. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not sitting in her house staring at the walls, waiting on somebody to save her. No, she is standing in her truth, choosing herself, and that takes strength most people don't even understand. See, loneliness comes from absence of connection, not absence of a relationship. A woman can be in a relationship and still feel completely alone. She can sleep next to somebody every night and still feel unheard, unseen, and unvalued. That kind of loneliness hurts deeper than solitude ever will. So, when a woman decides she would rather live alone than live unhappy, that is not weakness. That is self-respect finally waking up. Independence means she knows how to take care of herself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. She doesn't need constant validation to feel worthy. She doesn't need a title, a label, or a man beside her to confirm her value. She understands that her worth was never assigned by another person. It was already there. And once a woman realizes that, she stops begging for bare minimum love. A woman who lives alone has learned that peace is powerful. She understands that not everyone deserves access to her life. When you have peace, you become protective of it. You start paying attention to how people make you feel. You notice who drains you and who feeds your spirit. And when a woman reaches that level of awareness, she will choose solitude over stress every single time. Independence also teaches her accountability. There's no one else to blame for her choices, her growth, or her healing. She faces herself every day. She sits with her emotions. She works through her pain instead of hiding it behind a relationship. That kind of emotional maturity doesn't come from being rescued. It comes from doing the hard work alone. Now, let me tell you something important. A woman who is independent is not cold-hearted. She is not difficult. She is not too much. She simply knows what it cost her to become who she is. She remembers the nights she cried herself to sleep. She remembers the times she gave too much to someone who gave too little. And she promised herself she would never abandon herself again just to keep someone else. Living alone sharpens her standards. She no longer tolerates inconsistency, disrespect, or confusion. Why? Because she doesn't need it. When a woman can provide her own happiness, she becomes selective about who she allows into her space. She doesn't rush love. She doesn't chase attention. She waits for effort that matches her energy. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear: independent scares people who benefit from control. When a woman doesn't need you, you can't manipulate her. When she's comfortable alone, you can't threaten her with leaving. That's why an independent woman is often misunderstood. But she's not intimidating, she's just free. Ladies and gentlemen, independence is not a wall, it's a foundation. It's a woman saying, I know who I am, and I refuse to lose myself again. She is not lonely. She is loyal to herself. She is not missing out. She is preparing herself for a love that respects her, not replaces her. And that right there is self-respect in its purest form. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about a woman who chooses peace over pressure, because that choice right there separates strength from survival. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not running away from love. She is running toward peace. She has learned that being pressured into a relationship just to satisfy society, family, or fear will cost her more than it will ever give her. You see, pressure comes from outside voices, people asking questions, making comments, and setting timelines that were never meant for her life. Why are you still single? Don't you get lonely? Aren't you afraid of being alone? And after hearing that long enough, some women rush into relationships not because they feel love, but because they feel judged. A woman who lives alone has decided she will no longer let pressure dictate her choices. Peace, on the other hand, comes from alignment. It comes from knowing that your life makes sense to you, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else. When a woman chooses peace, she chooses calm mornings instead of anxious nights. She chooses emotional stability instead of constant uncertainty. She chooses clarity instead of confusion. And once she tastes that kind of peace, she's not quick to give it up. Living alone gives her space to breathe, space to think, space to heal. In that quiet, she begins to hear herself again. She remembers what she likes, what she wants, and what she will no longer tolerate. Relationships in the past may have required her to shrink, or to compromise too much, or to silence her needs just to keep someone around. Peace teaches her that love should never require self-betrayal. A woman who chooses peace understands that chaos is not passion and stress is not love. Just because something feels intense doesn't mean it's healthy. She's been through emotional roller coasters before, and she learned that excitement without safety leads to exhaustion. So now she values consistency. She values honesty. She values emotional maturity. And if a relationship doesn't offer those things, she's content staying by herself. This woman also learns how strong she really is. When you live alone, you don't have anyone to lean on for emotional shortcuts. You learn how to self-soothe. You learn how to pick yourself up on hard days. You learn how to celebrate your wins without waiting for someone else to notice. That kind of strength builds quiet confidence, not loud validation. Choosing peace also means setting boundaries, and boundaries make some people uncomfortable. When a woman says no to late-night confusion, mixed signals, or half-hearted effort, people may call her picky or difficult. But she's not difficult, she's disciplined. She knows what happens when she ignores red flags. She knows the cost of emotional chaos. So now she chooses peace, even when it means choosing solitude. And let me say this clearly, peace doesn't mean she's closed off. It means she's careful. She's open to love that feels safe, steady, and respectful. She's open to partnership that adds to her life instead of draining it. But she will not force love just to avoid being alone, because she has learned that being alone is not the worst thing losing yourself is. Ladies and gentlemen, a woman who lives alone without a boyfriend has mastered something powerful. She has learned that peace is not something someone gives you, it's something you protect. And anyone who wants a place in her life must respect that peace first. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain something real clear today. Wholeness does not come from a relationship, it comes from purpose. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not incomplete. She is not missing a piece, and she is not waiting on another human being to make her life meaningful. She understands something many people never learn, that you cannot outsource your happiness, your identity, or your purpose to someone else. See, a relationship can add to your life, but it can never define your life. And a woman who has learned to live alone has discovered who she is when nobody is clapping for her, texting her, or validating her choices. She knows herself beyond the role of girlfriend, partner, or wife. She knows what drives her, what excites her, and what gives her life meaning. That's purpose talking. Purpose gives a woman direction. When she wakes up in the morning, she's not checking her phone to see if someone still wants her. She's checking her vision. She's checking her goals. She's checking her growth. She understands that when your life has direction, desperation disappears. You stop chasing people because you're too busy chasing what God placed inside you. A woman who lives alone learns quickly that love without purpose can become a distraction. She's seen how relationships can pull you off track when you don't know who you are. She's watched women put dreams on hold, shrink their ambitions, and abandon their calling just to keep someone comfortable. And she made a decision that she would never trade her purpose for temporary affection. Purpose also teaches her patience. When you know where you're going, you're not in a rush to take the wrong road. She doesn't jump into relationships just because she feels lonely one night. She understands that emotions come and go, but a purpose requires commitment. She's willing to wait because she knows that the right person won't compete with her purpose. They'll respect it. Living alone gives her the space to grow into her assignment. She spends time learning, building, failing, and trying again. She invests in herself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And in that process, she becomes whole. Not perfect, but whole. Whole enough to know her flaws and still love herself. Whole enough to stand firm in her values, even when temptation shows up. Now let me tell you something important. A woman who is whole will never beg to be chosen. She understands that she is already chosen by her purpose. She doesn't need to convince a man to see her value because she sees it clearly herself. And that kind of confidence doesn't come from being desired. It comes from being aligned with who you're meant to be. Wholeness also changes how she loves. If and when she chooses to be in a relationship, she won't be looking for someone to fill a void. She'll be looking for someone to walk beside her. She won't expect a man to heal her wounds or fix her life. She's already done the work. She'll want partnership, not dependency. This woman understands that two broken people don't make a whole relationship. Two whole people make a healthy one. That's why she doesn't fear being alone. She fears being distracted from her purpose by the wrong connection. She knows that the wrong relationship can delay destiny, drain energy, and distort self-worth. And here's the part people misunderstand. Choosing purpose doesn't mean rejecting love. It means respecting yourself enough to wait for love that aligns with your life, not interrupts it. She believes that love should complement her purpose, not compete with it. She believes that the right person will see her mission and say, how can I support that? Not, why do you spend so much time on that? Ladies and gentlemen, a woman who lives alone without a boyfriend has learned the power of being whole. She is not searching for someone to save her. She is building a life that makes sense with or without applause. And when love finally shows up in her life, it won't complete her. It will join her on a journey she was already brave enough to start on her own. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. Standards don't push love away. Standards protect a woman's future. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not rejecting relationships. She is rejecting anything that threatens her peace, her values, and her destiny. She understands that standards are not walls built out of fear. They are filters built out of wisdom. A woman without standards will accept anything just to avoid being alone. She will overlook disrespect, excuse inconsistency, and tolerate confusion because she's afraid of silence. But a woman with standards has already learned that silence is safer than chaos. She knows that every yes she gives to the wrong person becomes a no to her future. So she chooses carefully. Standards are born from experience. They come from lessons learned the hard way, from nights spent crying over someone who promised everything and delivered nothing. A woman who lives alone has often been through situations where her boundaries were ignored and her heart was mishandled. Instead of becoming bitter, she became better. She adjusted her standards not to punish anyone, but to protect herself. Now let's be clear, having standards doesn't mean perfection is required. It means effort is required. Consistency is required. Respect is required. Emotional maturity is required. A woman with standards is not looking for a flawless man. She's looking for a grown man. Someone who can communicate, show up, and stand on his word. When a woman lives alone, she learns the value of her time. She knows how precious her energy is. She understands that every person she allows into her life will influence her thoughts, her emotions, and her direction. So she asks herself real questions before letting someone close. Does this person add peace or pressure? Does he bring clarity or confusion? Does he respect my boundaries or test them? Standards also protect her from potential. A woman without standards will fall in love with what a man could be instead of who he actually is. She'll stay because she believes in his promises, not his patterns. But a woman with standards pays attention to behavior. She knows that consistency speaks louder than words and effort speaks louder than excuses. Living alone teaches her that she doesn't need to lower her standards to be chosen. She's already chosen herself. She's already built a life she enjoys. So any man who wants to be part of that life must meet her where she is, not drag her backward. She's not asking for too much, she's asking the right person. And here's something important: standards make weak intentions uncomfortable. Men who are unsure, unprepared, or unserious often say a woman has too many rules. But that's because standards expose intentions. They reveal who is willing to rise and who was only there to benefit. Standards don't scare real love, they scare wasted time. A woman with standards doesn't rush. She observes. She listens. She watches how a man treats people when he doesn't need anything from them. She watches how he handles pressure, rejection, and responsibility. Because she knows attraction can blind you, but standards keep you grounded. Living alone gives her clarity. She's not desperate for attention, so she doesn't mistake attention for affection. She's not starving for companionship, so she doesn't accept breadcrumbs and call it a meal. She understands that a relationship should feel safe, not stressful. It should feel supportive, not suffocating. Standards also help her say no without guilt. She no longer explains herself to people who don't understand her boundaries. She doesn't apologize for wanting honesty, loyalty, and effort. She knows that lowering her standards might get her a relationship, but it could cost her her peace, her confidence, and her self-respect. And let me say this, standards don't delay love, they prepare you for it. They make sure that when love arrives, it's healthy, mutual, and aligned with your future. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend understands that the right relationship will not require her to compromise her values. It will confirm them. She is not difficult. She is disciplined. She is not demanding. She is discerning. She knows that the wrong relationship can set her back years emotionally and mentally. So she chooses wisely, even when it means choosing herself. Ladies and gentlemen, standards are not about ego. They're about protection. They protect her heart, her growth, and her future. And a woman who understands that will never apologize for expecting more because she knows exactly what it cost her to become who she is today. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about solitude, because solitude is not emptiness, it is a classroom. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not isolated from life. She is enrolled in one of the most powerful lessons growth can offer. Solitude has a way of revealing who you are when there is no audience, no distraction, and no one else to blame or lean on. When a woman lives alone, she is forced to face herself honestly. There is no relationship noise to drown out her thoughts, no arguments to distract her from her emotions, no one else's expectations shaping her decisions. In that quiet space, she learns what she truly feels, what she truly wants, and what she has been avoiding. That kind of self-awareness cannot be learned in a crowd. Solitude teaches her emotional strength. She learns how to process disappointment without running to someone else for comfort. She learns how to calm herself when life gets overwhelming. She learns that emotions don't have to control her choices. This emotional independence doesn't make her cold, it makes her stable. And emotional stability is one of the rarest qualities you will ever find. Living alone also forces personal responsibility. There is no one else to clean up the mess, emotionally or literally. Every decision has a consequence, and she owns all of them. When things go right, she celebrates herself. When things go wrong, she corrects herself. That builds confidence rooted in reality, not external praise. In solitude, a woman reconnects with her intuition. She begins to trust her inner voice again, the one that may have been ignored in past relationships. She remembers the red flags she once overlooked and the boundaries she once crossed for love. Solitude sharpens her instincts. She becomes harder to fool because she has learned to listen to herself. Solitude also fuels creativity and purpose. Without constant emotional demands, she has the mental space to dream again. She explores interests she put aside. She sets goals without compromise. She builds routines that support her growth. Living alone allows her to design a life that reflects who she is, not who she was trying to please. A woman who grows in solitude also develops patience. She understands that real growth takes time. She's no longer in a rush to be chosen, approved of, or validated. She knows that rushing into relationships often leads to repeating the same lessons with different faces. Solitude gives her the strength to wait instead of settling. This season alone also teaches her the difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness comes from disconnection, not from solitude. A woman who enjoys her own company is rarely lonely. She finds fulfillment in simple moments. She feels complete without constant attention. And that self-sufficiency changes the way she connects with others. When love eventually approaches her life, solitude has prepared her. She won't cling. She won't chase. She won't lose herself. She'll know how to stand on her own, even while loving someone else. She will choose partnership, not dependence. She will give love freely, not fearfully. Solitude also strengthens her boundaries. She becomes comfortable saying no. She no longer over-explains her decisions. She understands that not everyone deserves access to her time or emotions. Living alone teaches her that protecting her energy is not selfish, it's necessary. And let me tell you something important. Solitude is not permanent. It is a season, but it is a powerful one. A woman who grows in solitude comes out wiser, clearer, and stronger. She doesn't fear being alone because she has discovered that the relationship she built with herself is the foundation for every healthy relationship she will ever have. Ladies and gentlemen, solitude doesn't shrink a woman. It expands her. It sharpens her mind, strengthens her heart, and solidifies her identity. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend is not missing out on life. She is mastering it from the inside out. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about the kind of love that shows up only when a woman refuses to settle. A woman who lives alone without a boyfriend understands something powerful. The right love does not arrive because you are lonely. It arrives because you are ready. She has learned that accepting less than she deserves may fill space, but it empties the soul. So she chooses patience over panic and wisdom over wishful thinking. Settling usually comes from fear. Fear of time passing, fear of being judged, fear of ending up alone. But this woman has already faced that fear and realized it was exaggerated. She discovered that being alone did not break her, it built her. Once you learn that you can survive, grow, and even thrive on your own, you stop accepting relationships that require you to lower your standards or silence your needs. A woman who refuses to settle pays attention to patterns, not promises. She's heard beautiful words before. She's seen charm without commitment. She's experienced attention without intention. And she learned that love is not proven by what someone says in the beginning, but by what they consistently do over time. So now she waits, not passively, but confidently. This woman understands timing. She knows that rushing love often leads to repeating the same lesson with a different person. She trusts that what is meant for her will meet her at the right moment, not force her to compromise herself just to make it work. She would rather wait than force a connection that doesn't fit her life. Refusing to settle also means she's no longer impressed by surface level effort. Grand gestures don't distract her from lack of consistency. Temporary attention doesn't confuse her into thinking it's commitment. She looks for alignment in values, emotional availability, and respect, because she knows chemistry can start a relationship, but character is what sustains it. Living alone has taught her discernment. She notices how a man handles responsibility, how he communicates under pressure, how he treats people when there's nothing to gain. She understands that love without respect becomes control, and attraction without trust becomes anxiety. So she chooses carefully, not emotionally. Now let me be clear, this woman still believes in love. She's not bitter. She's not closed. She's hopeful but grounded. She knows love is real. But she also knows it's rare when it's healthy. And because she has built a life she enjoys, she doesn't need to force love to feel complete. When the right love approaches her life, it won't feel confusing. It won't feel rushed. It won't feel draining. It will feel steady. It will feel respectful. It will feel like peace walking into peace. Because the right love doesn't compete with her independence. It complements it. A woman who refuses to settle is not asking for perfection. She's asking for effort. She's asking for honesty. She's asking for consistency. And the right person won't see that as pressure. They'll see it as clarity. They'll rise to meet her, not ask her to lower herself. This woman understands that love is a choice made daily, not a feeling chased emotionally. She wants partnership, not confusion. She wants growth, not excuses. She wants someone who is secure enough to stand beside a strong woman, not intimidated by her strength. And here's the truth most people overlook. The right love often comes after a woman decides she's okay without it. When she stops searching out of fear and starts living out of purpose, love finds her aligned, not desperate. That's when it's real. Refusing to settle doesn't delay love, it filters it. It removes what would have wasted her time and makes room for what can actually last. And when love finally arrives in her life, it won't rescue her. It will respect her. It won't complete her. It will choose her fully, intentionally, and consistently. Ladies and gentlemen, a woman who lives alone without a boyfriend and refuses to settle is not unlucky in love. She is prepared for it. She is protecting her future while trusting the process. And when the right love shows up, it won't need convincing. It will recognize her value immediately because she never forgot it herself.